Okay, so I have used a lot of VR headsets from a lot of different companies. Cheap ones, expensive ones, I've even QA tested for a few unreleased ones, but in all of my time reviewing VR headsets, there has never been a company weirder, more odd, and more outlandish than Pimax. And today, we're going to take a full dive into the truly wacky world of Pimax VR, a company that is somehow capable of shipping this, the widest field of view VR headset in production with an extremely high resolution of 8K, but somehow also ship probably one of the worst VR controllers ever made. And yeah, if that sounded like an oxymoron, you don't even know how deep the Pimax rabbit hole goes. But still, for years, I've been asking myself, if this is all so good, why don't more people have this headset? Shoot, why don't you have this headset? On paper, it looks like a VR dream. But now that I finally have one in hand, I think I know exactly why. And if you care about VR as a technology at all, this is an interesting case study into a company that is truly doing something different than everybody else. But I think we all feel that something is just a little off, and I think I've gotten to the bottom of it. So this is the Pimax 8KX Vision, essentially the third and likely final revision of the 8K lineup from Pimax before their next line of headsets. Which, oh, don't worry, we'll talk about those. And crammed inside this hammerhead-looking device is actually some really impressive technology. At the widest, this headset is capable of an advertised 200 degrees field of view. That is almost as wide as we see reality with our eyes normally, and this alone has me completely sold on wide FOV hardware in the future. To give you an idea of what this really looks like, this is a normal Quest 2's field of view in-game. And with the 8KX, this is easily expanded to almost double. And honestly, this alone does so much to completely change the experience in VR. No longer am I staring through binoculars with black rings around my view. Instead, with this, I naturally treat VR much more like I do reality. Everything is just so much more immersive. You don't know what you're missing until, well, it's no longer missing. However, the way Pimax went about this leads to some pretty heavy drawbacks, but we're not onto the negatives yet. As the name says, the Pimax 8KX is 8K, but it's not. It's really only 4K with a resolution of 3840 by 2160 per eye. The displays are pretty good for LCD panels, and the screen door effect is completely non-existent as you'd expect with this sort of resolution. And where these displays really shine are in the details, like reading text or looking at textures up close. It's a pretty phenomenal experience, and while not nearly as clear as something like the Vario Aero, the 8KX is also half the price and double the field of view, so trade-offs. And Pimax have also pushed the 8KX quite a bit since launch, bringing updates like 120Hz refresh rate, which is a massive improvement over the previous 60 to 90. The head strap and materials have been updated, index-style audio add-ons, potential face tracking and eye tracking and hand tracking add-ons, even a wireless adapter was mentioned, and this all sounds amazing, right? This is exactly what we wanted. And, well, to be real, if you go in raw, this is the reality of the Pimax virtual reality experience. If you thought getting VR this good was easy, well, it's gonna cost you, and in more ways than just your wallet. By the time you actually get the 8KX up and running, your soul would have likely erupted from your body as SteamVR has crashed for the 20th time, all while your eyes are cross-eyed holding an airplane vomit bag. Only after you've gone through all of that and fixed a lot of Pimax's problems can you actually enjoy near-human field of view VR. Let me tell you where my troubles started. I actually got nauseous while using this headset, and I've only gotten sick in VR once. I had the IPD set correctly, I was getting good enough frame rates, my tracking was fine, so I looked up what was going on, and it turns out this is a very well-known issue with this headset. When setting the IPD on an 8KX, you also have to manually adjust the pixel offset per eye, otherwise, without even knowing, you'll you'll be experiencing this slow, subliminal, barely noticeable eye strain that can cause all sorts of issues, including nausea and headaches. And after a few hours of play, I had both. So in order to fix that, the best option is to put the controllers in front of you, open up the PyTool app, and adjust the pixel offset while lifting up the headset and putting it back down over and over again to make sure the controllers match up exactly position-wise in reality and in VR. But this is like minor adjustments, and over time it's hard to tell even what's right or wrong, and eventually I'm second guessing myself, wondering what's even real anymore. And if you get this adjustment wrong, you won't even notice until hours later when your eyes are hurting or you're puking. And this just feels so wrong for a $1,400 VR headset, and a flagship at that. Not to mention the 8KX just doesn't work out of the box for some games like Beat Saber or modded Boneworks, leading to game crashes or complete double vision. I mean, for real, what VR headset doesn't work for Beat Saber? I have to mod it just to not go cross-eye. And to be fair, all of these issues are fixable. I mean, I did fix it, and I had a great time afterwards, but Pimax headsets in general are just not plug and play. There are a lot of things you gotta do to make it work. And Pimax just really misses a lot of details that matter, which is something that I'll touch back on in just a moment. Some of the other things I wanted to bring up is the audio experience, both mic and headphones. This is the best audio Pimax offers compared to the Index. And the microphone. Testing the microphone on the Pimax 8KX. Testing the microphone on the Valve Index. And I think you get the idea. It could be better, especially for the price. And of course, the drawbacks I talked about earlier regarding the field of view, in order to get this massive 200-degree FOV, Pimax had to use these super oddly shaped Fresnel lenses, which do in fact introduce quite a bit of distortion when at the maximum FOV setting. And this is about an approximation of how it looks. At first, it was super distracting, but over time, I grew to not mind at all. Of course, I would rather there be no distortion, as would anybody, but after getting used to the 8KX over a few hours, I wasn't noticing the distortion nearly as much. And that's kind of what made me realize there is something really special about Pimax headsets and Pimax in general. The more I used it and the more I solved all of these little quirks that pop up with Pimax, and believe me, there were a lot of them, the more I grew to enjoy it, and the more I realized that I really dread going back to the Quest 2 or even the Index field of view. Yeah, the Index is more comfortable, it sounds better on both ends of VR, it's less shaky, there's no distortion, but being able to see all of this is amazing. It truly draws you into VR like nothing else can, and hours flew by. Like, legit, a whole day went by and I was just sitting there playing VR games because I got lost in the experience. That's what this sort of VR does to you. But the special part about Pimax is that nobody else is doing this. Name one company that is making a 200-degree field of view headset for consumers. There's no one. So yeah, it's flawed, of course, but it exists and it does work. And the same thing goes for their controllers. And dude, I actually hate these controllers. This is the Pimax Sword that they've been talking about for years now. I think the only person I've ever seen like them were LS Toast, and that's because they worked well for Beat Saber. But frankly, if you play anything other than Beat Saber, the Sword controllers have no thumbsticks and only one button, meaning that they don't work for most Steam VR games out of the box. They have no capacitive sensors on the buttons, a 3-hour battery life. Shoot, I spent more than 3 hours troubleshooting these. They were dead before I even got in. And they cost the same as Knuckles, but offer significantly less. However, who else is really making Steam VR controllers? I can name one other company and they haven't even shipped yet. So even though I hate them and I think they are terrible controllers for VR, I have to say, it's a good first attempt. And I'd rather them attempt to make a Steam VR controller than not. And maybe the second version will be amazing and you don't get to a V2 without a V1 and learning from it. But back to the running theme that I noticed, there's a lack of attention to details. On this example, it's the buttons. And that gets us perfectly into the meat of this video. Yeah, this headset and these controllers are interesting, of course, but I didn't get you here to watch a review of a VR headset that you're never going to buy. Instead, I also want to fulfill my promise to take you on an adventure into the wacky world of Pimax. The 8KX and Sword are really just a living purchasable example, just the tip of the iceberg. And when you go deeper, well, let me just show you.
We are going where no one has gone before.
Over the past year, Pimax has been announcing all sorts of new products, and if you missed the announcements, well, you missed some absolute gold. They straight up ripped the Star Trek intro for their press release, these cheesy existential questions, and this guy hyping up the soon-to-be released Pimax Crystal and 12K, claiming they have pioneered VR 3.0. And it's just, I don't know, just look at this.
Today, we are announcing the new Pimax Crystal. Sharper, clearer, and sexier than before. Such an absolutely, ridiculously grand degree of clarity, our human eyes can no longer distinguish if an object is in virtual reality or in the real world in front of us. We are absolutely thrilled.
Hi! Here at Pimax, we're pioneering VR 5.0. 3 and 4.0 with our new Pimax 40 8K headset featuring 24 2K displays. This headset is going to boldly go where no one has gone before. Now, with our proprietary IGJBM displays, VR is going to be indistinguishable from reality. Featuring every type of tracking you can imagine: face, eye, leg, toe. Your entire body is going to be tracked, and we're releasing it next year. All you have to do is buy our current headset that we haven't been able to sell because we haven't fixed all these problems it has. This might sound like I'm being hard on Pimax, and honestly, yes, I am. But that's because I actually love Pimax. I love this headset, and I love the prospect of super wide field of view VR in the future. And after experiencing a week of 200-degree VR, I'm on board. This is the future. It makes everything better. But I also can't stand around and act like all of the quirks and problems I ran into are okay or normal. And I also can't lie and act like I like their controller attempt. The only way to make Pimax better is to be brutally honest. This pixel offset problem, not cool. Weird PyTool glitches? No. Having to mod games just to play normally? No. Now, relatively subpar audio and microphones I can deal with, but releasing entire headsets before your previous one is fixed, now that's a whole different story. And this testimony on Reddit pretty much sums up the modern Pimax experience. Pimax is more like a prototype sport car, which works on specific fuel and needs specific preheat start sequences. I would never take that car to work or to pick up groceries. It's not daily driver material for me. But when I do take it for a spin, even if it takes a bunch of work to get there, I have an incredible experience. So, Pimax, now it's your job to make the Pimax experience more frictionless. These little details that people have been fixing for you just because they've already sunk thousands on a headset, those details really matter to people, and you'd sell a lot more headsets if you fixed them. And right now, right before your next headsets launch, headsets that promise the actual best VR experience ever, well, now is the time for you to care about those details so history doesn't repeat itself. The 8K launched half broken, and years later, it's only half fixed. And you can do so much better than that. I've seen it. I've seen the potential. Pimax is doing things that nobody else in the industry even dares to try. And while this headset and these controllers work, and the headset itself is pretty darn good after you fix the problems, this could all be better, including the cheesy press conferences. But hey, maybe that's part of the weird appeal. But right now is the time where Pimax either cements its legacy and future as an oddball company that overpromises and underdelivers, or makes something amazing that blows people's minds and sets a clear example and path for a really exciting future for VR enthusiasts and VR enthusiasm, doing something that nobody else dare do. And I will be right there when the new headsets launch. But for now, it's your move. And I cannot wait to see what that is, and I'm sure I'm not alone. But either way, hope you enjoyed. Much love, Thrill out.